Steve, a soundbite that you may want to cut for the beginning of this episode would be us saying essentially this is a cruise for adults, so maybe this is an episode that kiddos wouldn't necessarily listen to.
Gotcha. Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you cruise a little smarter. And we've got a huge cast today to talk about Christy's latest cruise. But before we jump into that cruise, I'd like to welcome back to the show all the way down in Florida. How are you doing today, Christy?
I am well, Steve. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm pretty excited about this, and joining us as well.
I don't think you are actually, but I'm glad we're all here together, and we will wake you up before the end of the show.
Okay, we'll stay on the East Coast, and welcome to the show. Also, one of our good friends from the show and the co-creators of Mouse Chin. Welcome to the show, Lake, over in Lakeland. How you doing today, Lake?
Doing pretty good. Very excited for today's topic.
Yeah, so am I. And joining us out on the Best Coast, Chris down in Los Angeles. How you doing today, Chris?
So good. It is fall weather here, which is a joy and a half.
We finally got fall up here too. The leaves are finally turning, and now that they're getting ready to do Very Merry Time, or the Very Merry Time cruises and Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, the fall has finally shown up. So we are going to jump into a fun cruise, which you were able to do, kind of a cruise line that I think a lot of people are curious about. Several of our listeners have cruised on it, and they've all come back, I think, enjoying it. Christy, which cruise did you go on?
I went on Virgin Voyages.
And it was a 4-night sailing out of Miami where you got to stop at Key West. You went to, is it just Bimini? Mm-hmm. Bimini, a day at sea, and back there. And I think to just start off the show, Lake, why don't you run with it and kick us off?
To start us off, we obviously we see a lot of new cruise ships every year from all sorts of lines. We don't see a lot of new cruise lines, and especially ones trying to do things as different as Virgin is doing. And I think because of that, there are a lot of different kind of conceptions of what this cruise line is, who it's for, and who may enjoy it. So before you even got on the ship, what were kind of some of your thoughts about the cruise line? Have you booked this cruise line for any clients?
I have. I've booked it for one client and quoted for a couple of others. I was skeptical. I think you guys from the text would know that. I was a little skeptical about going. There was an agent in my office who's done a ton of cruises. She's in her 60s. She loved her Virgin Voyages cruise. To me, I always had that in the back of my mind. I was like, Marianne loves this cruise. Marianne loved her time on that ship. Marianne said, I will have a great time. I will eat well. I will have a good cruise. And so I just kept thinking of that, because I really didn't think overall that this was the cruise for me. And we'll talk about it in a second. But if you just count the first, once we got through the ship and on, but within the first hour and a half, I wondered again whether this was still the cruise for me. But then after that little tiny rough moment, it was a little spoiler alert. We had a great time.
So why don't we go ahead and run with that? First off, this was out of Miami. I'm going to guess you drove down the good old the Turnpike.
Yes, the Florida Turnpike. And we had our Bluetooth MapQuest, whatever it's called. And it was like Florida Turnpike. She doesn't know how to say Florida. So we took the Turnpike. It probably took 3.5-ish hours. It was super easy. Let me just tell people, because when I drove by myself in April, and then I drove with my friend, I cruised with my neighbor. So she is a fellow agent. We are friends. She's the reason that I bought this house in Orlando area, because she had purchased the hot lot in our neighborhood first. She asked me to go because she had a colleague that was supposed to go. The colleague had to cancel. And so she was like, Christy, hey, you need to come with me because I don't want to go alone. So I booked 9 days before. We took the Turnpike. And here's my pro tip. If you are driving from Miami to the cruise port, or Orlando to the cruise port, take the express lanes, because I missed it the first time. And the second time I told her, I said, oh, I'm pretty sure we need to be in those express lanes, because the driving in the Miami area, and I feel like, Lake, you said this when you guys cruised out of there earlier in the year, The very end is a little much. It's got a lot going on. So if you take that express lane, you miss so much of it. So pro tip, don't miss the express lane. It's all the way on the left-hand side as you're approaching Miami. Get in there. It's like 7 miles long, and it will save you a lot of headache.
Anyone driving from like the Orlando or even like northern Florida, taking the turnpike all the way down to Miami, pretty much your first like 3.5 hours, smooth, easy. Yeah. It is that last like 15 to 20 minutes that is just chaotic. People driving all over, switching lanes. Like it is just mayhem and you can like almost see the cruise terminal at that point. And it is just like so stressful getting there. But similar to Disney, Virgin actually built out their own terminal at the port of Miami. So what was that experience like going through embarkation, and how does that compare to, say, boarding in Disney's own private terminal at Port Canaveral?
Finding the terminal was a little tough because they are way off to the side. They have, I think they were like Terminal Z, for example. They were all the way off. And so you definitely felt like you were doing something wrong trying to get there. But then we got there, we could park. It's just like Port Canaveral. You literally park across the street. It's not even a real street. I think it's like a parking lot and like, I don't know, a walking area or something. So super easy parking. You enter the terminal. They have these signs about there's no real lines. There's no check-in whilst we're waiting in a line that's a bit crowded to go through security. So Virgin is trying to say they're different. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of the same. You have to go through security. You have to have them review your documents. I don't get their comment of there's no real check-in line because there is. It's just in different locations. But checking in was fine. You get a bracelet that everybody has to have and wear, and that is your room key. That is your charging privileges. That's your entry on and off the ship. That we had no issues with that bracelet the whole time. You get boarding groups. Another pro tip, if you have Castaway Club status, for sure it works with anybody with elite status with any cruise line. So, one of their top tier, top level statuses. Virgin for this year is doing a status match. So you fill out a form. It's super easy. I think you send in a picture showing your status. I used a cruise confirmation that said that I had platinum status with Disney, and you get special privileges, including, and this also would work if you just already cruised twice on Virgin this year, but you get expedited boarding. By the time we arrived at maybe 1:00 or 1:15, 1:30, it was already general boarding. I think it was probably 1:30 by the time we got through security and stuff. So it was general boarding. We weren't in a big hurry to get out of Orlando in that morning. The expedited boarding didn't really matter because everybody just got on the ship at the same time. But you get a ton of perks throughout your week. Well, a good sufficient number. So definitely fill out that form if you have status with another cruise line and you're taking Virgin. Hopefully they're going to extend that into next year.
That's a really cool and different perk that I don't think we've seen from any other cruise lines, at least not recently.
MSC does that.
I was going to say,
but
MSC.
It's pretty much these European or people that are trying to break into the American market. They're like, well, what can we do to entice the Americans for the different product on the Scarlet Witch? And that makes sense.
Why is she a witch?
Sorry, Christy, you don't know anything about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So
I don't.
a...
That's a Marvel joke. Did not get that at all.
It's
Definitely
fine.
Didn't get that.
It's fine. But what was the ship you sailed on, by the way? I know they're all Scarlet something. Yours was what? The Scarlet Lady, the Scarlet Mermaid?
Yeah, it was the Scarlet Lady.
Okay.
And then the next one is the Valiant Lady, I believe. That's coming to the United States next.
And how many cruise ships do they have that sail out of the US? Is it just one so far?
It's only one now, and their next one is coming shortly.
Okay.
And this cruise does mostly short cruises, 4 and 5 night cruises. Originally, it was supposed to go to Cuba, but cruises haven't returned to Cuba, although there is some talk about more tourism in Cuba next year. So maybe cruise lines will be able to stop there again. But the Valiant Lady is doing 6 and 8 night sailings to more unique islands.
So before we jump into the cruise itself, then just to kind of put it into perspective, the Scarlet Lady's kind of in between the dream and fantasy and the wonder and the magic. So just to kind of give everybody perspective, what was it like getting on her? What was your thoughts of the ship?
She's very red. You know, red is one of my favorite colors. It was my favorite color for a very long time. So I loved the red everywhere. I think pink is beating it now. But it made me question this, and like a little bit later into the morning, or this first part of the cruise made me question my decisions, my life's choices. It was so loud. And there's somebody with like a blowhorn. What are those things called? Megaphone? Oh, I don't know. The thing with the big speaker out of that.
Yeah.
Just like making noise. And it was like a nightclub. So it was like banging nightclub guy going, something into the, I was like, oh my God, kill me now. But that was like the only time that I sort of had an experience like that I didn't have a choice over. And so thank God it wasn't like that the whole cruise. I may have jumped ship. You know, here's the thought I had. So this is to give you perspective on the thought. I was like, our first day at sea, or our first port rather, is Key West. If I hate it, I can get in a car and get back to Orlando. So it wouldn't be that big of a deal, right? I didn't hate it. I didn't ever have any more thoughts of jumping ship, except for 2 times on that first day.
Okay, but besides that, what did you think of the ship itself?
Oh, she's pretty. She's fine. She's a ship. You know, you get on and it's sort of like boarding a celebrity cruise. It's not that giant atrium grand hall experience. There is a little bit of a multiple floor situation, but it's a much tighter area. They're not wasting a lot of space by saying, look at our space.
Let's talk about the cabin. There has been much to be said about almost every aspect of Virgin, but one thing that people talked a ton about back when the ship first launched was how different the cabins were. My understanding is that when they launched, they had this sort of thing where your stateroom was just like a living room during the day. And then at night, they would turn what was a couch into the bed, and you would arrive back at your living room to find that it was now a bedroom. And that made your daytime feel a lot more spacious because there wasn't this like giant bed in the middle of the room. But a lot of people were confused by that, or didn't like that they basically had to ask to be able to take naps. So I'm curious, how did you find the room, given that you were sailing alone? I'm sure it was enough space, but how did you find the room in your ample cruise experience?
Yeah, it was different. There was actually more storage, shockingly, especially if you look at videos when it first came out, you're like, there's no storage in there. There's more storage than on the Wish. And they have the TV at the end of the bed. So it's that tight, you know, squeeze a little bit through, getting through to past the TV. They don't do the bed switch thing anymore. So I think it was a manpower situation where they didn't want to have enough crew to turn down service. We met our cabin attendant in the very beginning right away. I think we were like dropping our bags and he popped out of somewhere. He's like, we will service your room once a day. So it was very clear they weren't doing anything to that bed. The cabins were fine. The bathroom situation was fine. I would say the shower is potentially slightly roomier than like a Royal Caribbean ship for sure. It's equal or slightly roomier than that. That was all fine. They had this is important for people that care about this kind of thing. They had the stupid bottle pumps with your soap and stuff. No big deal. But they had a separate conditioner and shampoo. This is a premium cruise line. And so that's something to note versus the mass market cruise lines that are dumping shampoo, body wash sometimes, and conditioner into one. Hello, that doesn't work for anybody's body. And Lake, that has very little hair, I don't even know that situation would work for you. It's just, you know, you cannot put all those things together. So anyway, they're separate items. I actually, pro tip, I unhooked my body wash and I scooped it behind I pulled it off the little thing it was at. And then I put it behind my sink. And that was my hand pump for my hand wash for the entirety of the cruise. So that's something you can do. It was all fine. The bed was possibly the worst cruise bed I've ever slept in my whole life. Like all my cruises, possibly the worst. It was quite hard. Like you could tell the situation they have underneath it that was going to make it that couch. It was all very wood. It was nothing like the most amazing Disney Wish that you sink into it and just have yourself a lovely little dream time. It was not like that at all. but it was fine. The cabins were fine. The hammock, you guys, the hammock, every cruise veranda needs a hammock. Loved it. It was actually very easy. I watched a video about some guy getting into it and I was like, well, this looks easy. You like sit in it as a chair and then you scoop it around you. You could do that. It's lovely. It doesn't make you fly out of it when you go to sit. God, it's comfortable.
We saw a lot of pictures of your feet.
Yeah. It was so comfortable. It was really great. The door to the veranda. Oh, the chairs though on the veranda. Clearly people did not sit in them. I like took a pillow from in the cabin because it was like, I had to like, because I'm so short, because my friend sat and she's like 5 inches taller than me. Because I'm so short, I'm like, hello. Like you guys can't see who's watching this at home or listening to it, but it was like I was doing a Pilates ab workout every time I tried to sit in the chair. So I sat in my hammock. It was just fine. They will not open the door, or they'll only open that door in the veranda when they're in port. We never figured out why. And we had them come the one day and open it. And that ship went like 1 foot from the dock and they were knocking on the door. Like bing, 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 bing. Okay, we got to close your veranda door. I don't know what that was about, but they won't.
You can't go out on the veranda when you're at sea?
No. Oh, sorry. The connecting door. You know, like you could open
between the cabins.
Yes.
Yes. Gotcha.
My neighbor was my neighbor on the cruise ship. So we wanted that door open. It didn't. We weren't able to do that.
That just sounds like a policy or something they have. Who knows why? But
only on port days and only while in port.
Please join our Patreon if you want to see pictures of Christy's feet. Just always have to plug the Patreon. I do want to acknowledge that the hammock is like one of their selling points. They talk about this front and center on their website. They'll be like, try our hand-woven hammock and, relax your day away with a cocktail. So I do feel like that is something that they are very, very excited to be able to offer. I've also heard, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like a weird way to turn off. There's like a hidden switch or a hidden like request service button or a hidden, like it's something that is hard to find. And originally when like online reviewers were on the maiden voyage, they were like, I'm sorry, who designed this? But Christy, can you tell me what that was like? And could you find it?
Well, our room steward, when he met us the first 5 seconds of getting on the ship,
had to tell you.
instantly showed us where that button is. There is a do not disturb, and like you have a doorbell on your cabins and the doorbell will not work if the do not disturb is on. And then it also, and it's just like a little bit, it's just like next to the wall. So it's in the closet next on the wall, basically leading out. And there's also a please service my cabin button. And the tech on this ship is kind of cool. Now, there's an iPad in each cabin. I turned off my iPad at one point because I couldn't make it go dark and I wanted it to be off and I could never turn it back on. I did not need to ever turn it back on, so I didn't ask for assistance on that, but I could never get it to re-engage. But really cool tech. Like when we would leave the ship and go off for the day in port, we would come back to our cabins and the blinds would all open and light would come on. Like none of the things were on. And we didn't close the blinds when we left. So we didn't have service during the days. So nobody was coming in our cabin to close the blinds. It just closes, like conserving energy, keeping the cabin cool. So cool. And then when you come back in, it just opens. And then there is like, it's set to do like evening stuff. So even though we weren't getting service, like turn down service, your blinds while you're at dinner and stuff close to give you turn down, and like a little light goes on to like do all the turn down service stuff that a person would do. They make the cabin do it on their own.
I mean, that's honestly a money time saving tip for cruise lines. If you can put the tech in, why not? I feel like that sort of leads us to the things about this cruise line that are trying to be different, because that is an example of something very different. I stayed once in a hotel that's like what you're describing in Vegas, where everything would change when you like put the key in the door and opened it. one thing that this cruise line wants to do very differently, and obviously can because they don't allow children. I don't know if we have said this yet to our listeners, but one thing about this cruise line is you have to be, is it 18 or 21 to sail?
18.
There's a lot of differences. One of those being the age. Another one being that when you don't have kids, you do different entertainment. Like you're not worried about Mickey's sail a wave party, or you're not worried about trying to get, people to realize that Goofy can be the captain of a ship if he wants to. So you can really
That's the best show ever.
I know. But you could really do different things. And they've talked a ton about that, about how they have different types of entertainment and experiences. For example, you can get a tattoo on the high sea if you would like to get a tattoo. You can go to like more adult themed comedy or shows because there's only adults on the ship. You don't really have to worry about children. So
and you basically are going to adult themed shows. Like that's what they have.
That's
and that
all
would
they have.
be, that's all they have. And that would be the one thing I'd maybe tell somebody if they're considering it. There is a lot of colorful language that is spoken by the crew, by the guests, and by every entertainment. And so like one cabin steward was coming, I don't know. I think my friend locked herself out of her room once. I locked myself out of the room once. I think she locked herself out of the room once. Somebody was coming to let us in. And this lady was telling us a story, and she was the floor manager. There was a lot of colorful language and we don't care, that came out of her mouth describing whatever story she was describing about. Oh, some guy got let into a room. This is it. Some guy got let into a room and it was the wrong room. And he went to sleep, and somebody else showed up and was like, what are you doing in here? And he was like 2 floors on the wrong floor. And describing that, she was like, so we need to kind of know that this is the room you belong in. Of course, makes total sense. But it was a colorful way to describe it.
What you're saying is, that would make some people uncomfortable.
For sure.
And it would make some people be like, that's my jam. I want to do that all the time when I cruise. So
Yes.
Something to think about when you're sailing is, what kind of family friendly environment am I looking for? Because this ship does not have a family friendly goal. That's not what they're trying to push out there as a product.
And the thing I think about it that's important is that you can make this cruise whatever you want it to be. So you can make it quiet and relaxing, or you can make it jammed and entertainment and loud. And there was some event called Circus Disco. You can make it Circus Disco for your whole trip if you wanted it as well. And so Virgin can be what you want it to be, which is really awesome, but it's going to be a little more colorful.
So I know that they have an interesting theater concept, right? It's convertible and does a bunch of things. Can you tell us what the main theater is like and what types of entertainment you were able to access there?
It's called the Red Room, and it's in the front of the ship, like every ship's entertainment is practically. It really does convert. The first day you go to we went to the show, it was a regular 2-floor show space like you would find on any Disney ship, right? Where the stage is in the front, the seats go back, they're staged stadium seats, things like that. Then the third show, it was the second show we went to in there. They actually had it separated where they had a gymnastics floor, like a comfy, squishy gymnastics floor in the middle. They had some tape where they wanted people to walk, and they had seats on 2 different sides, and they made a red team and a blue team. They really can convert it. And then I understand that there is another event that we did not go to that uses that room, that they actually get rid of all of the seats. There's not a seat to be had. And then everybody stands to watch the show, and then it turns into a dance party. To that point, let me just say one more thing. I have not really stopped wearing our masks indoors in crowded spaces yet. And I continued to do that on the cruise. There was probably me and 5 other people, maybe 10 on the cruise that were wearing face masks. But, mostly they were not. So, but, I'm however many days now, 5 days post cruise, and it's all fine. So whatever, I'm still doing that.
So for the big shows, did you have to, was it easy to just go in and arrive and get into them? Or do you have to book a spot or anything like that?
Yeah, you have to reserve it the first day. Like Royal Caribbean does that as well, where once you're on board and in Wi-Fi, you can start reserving the shows. They do sell out. And that's the same. They do fitness classes. They're really into like, we give you free fitness classes, but those all sold out like right the first day as well. There are some standby seats. So when people don't show up or change their mind, so you can wait in a line up to like 30 minutes before, and they will fill you in as right before the show starts. I think you have to be there 15 minutes before. If you have an assigned time, they scan your badge when you go in, your bracelet.
Yeah. And not to make too big of this, we already talked about this. It's not a family cruise, so the shows are pretty colorful, or they can be pretty colorful.
They can be provocative.
There we go. That's the word I'm looking for, just so everybody kind of knows that going into it. So,
and the first show was fascinating. I sent you guys some pictures, and you just never knew what was going to happen next. The entertainers were very entertaining. Maybe Chris would definitely say they were not the best singers, but they were very entertaining and they put their heart and soul into it. There's like a lot of drag show type entertainment. I mean, there just is. Like this one lady goes around the world and she's kind of like half the time in a fluffy diaper bikini situation. It's very weird. So it's just a lot, right? And then there was the end of the first show that a person comes out in like a Speedo. And so it's not a Speedo, but it was maybe another bathing suit bottom. It's different. It was entertaining.
So other than like big shows, what kind of other entertainment did you find along the ship? I know another thing people talked about was kind of randomly running into different events happening on board. What was that like?
We did not find too much random running into entertainment, but we are also probably less roamy than most people. But look at guys. Do you know what that sound is? Paper navigators, or whatever we want to call them. What did they call them? They just said glance at the day. Oh, it was Scarlet. Well, it just says, the name of the ship, Glance at the Day. It's a pocket guide. What a brilliant idea. A pocket guide to tell you what you could do throughout the day. So yeah, there was live entertainment, a lot of live entertainment. They had like, I just noticed that they had painting. It's called painting and boozy bevies. There are a lot of play on words, like Steve with his dumb dad puns would love this so much. It was so punny. It was just adult punny the whole time. So like I could have done painting. I missed it. I missed that little sheet, but I do have the, not calling them navigators for 3 of the 4 days. I missed a day and I went to get it. It was too late and I wasn't walking down to deck 5 to get it from there. But if somebody wants them, reach out, Christy@packerpixieDust.com. I am going to scan them and have them in an email. I will email them to you if you want to see what kind of entertainment they had. But they had trivia. They call it salty trivia. So again, it's going to be a little edgier trivia, but they had that every day. Steve, before the show, I don't know if you were joking or not, but you were like, I don't know, like if that would be my vibe, this cruise. There is like a Ale and Compass type bar that is maybe your British pub bar that I feel like would be Steve's element. And then outside of there, they had, what's that like puck game that you play on a wood surface? It's in bars with the little discs.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So whatever I'm talking about, that's the game. One of the games. They have that out. They have air hockey. They have like all of this type of sports bar-y type entertainment that you can partake in. They also had a little arcade, and all the arcade games were included. So you could go to the arcade, and that was right over in that area. And then they have a sports deck that had basketball court and a whole bunch of other things that we didn't pay that much attention to, but they like have different ways that you can be boring if you want with your entertainment. boring's not the right word, but it is, right? It's like, it's not circus disco, the opposite of circus disco.
So one last question, I guess, along that. I did an interview with somebody about Norwegian Cruise Line, and they had kind of a cover band, and they just had a blast. He and his wife, it was just he and his wife sailing on it. And they had a blast, going to a music venue like that, without having to worry about the kids and all that type of stuff. Do they have anything like that on board, where you could just go listen to music?
They had music in the lobby atrium, something every evening, whatever they called the middle area. Oh, they called it the roundabout.
Very British.
Wait, Christy, did you ever get in the tiny pool?
No, but you know what? There's two of them, and they're not quite as tiny as they looked in all the pictures. There is the tiny little round pool, which I think is what we were all thinking is the main pool. It was not very warm on our cruise. It was like that one weekend where there was cold in Florida. But the main pool is actually kind of large. I mean, not large, but good sized. And there's people sitting around it. There were people definitely in the hot tub. There were definitely people sitting around. There was one day, I'm trying to think, maybe it was the Bimini day that the weather turned around and it got like less windy and it got warmer. And so there were a lot more people sitting around the pools then.
How did the pool deck handle it? Was it crowded on that day then, would you say?
It wasn't a crowded sailing. There was only 1,500 people. And they said the week after the us only had 1,000 guests coming on. So they were actually like, we don't care when you leave your cabin. There's only 1,000 people coming back on. Take your time. So, stuff like that, that's definitely a different vibe, right? They're not yelling at you every 5 minutes starting at 8:00 to get off the ship, or it might implode. Christy,
I'm just curious. Do they have a premium product like concierge class?
Yes, they do. They're Rockstar Suites. And they have their own section, which I could never fully see where that section was, but they have their own section of the pool deck as well, like a little premium suite section.
And price-wise, how does Virgin Voyages compare to other cruise lines in the same class?
I would say it's comparable.
But how do they classify themselves? A premium cruise line?
They do. They're a premium cruise line, like Celebrity, like Holland America.
So you felt that it was a similar product to those premium cruise lines that you've been on?
Yes. Edgier, but premium.
Edgier, but premium. That sounds like my jam. I've said so many times, especially with our Patreon, that like, as soon as we finalize our adoption, I think like our gift to ourselves will be an adult vacation, because that'll give us a chance to sort of like get out and create like space in our relationship. And this is
let your hair down.
Yeah, this is a prime candidate for that type of vacation for us, because we like cruising. We know that. But we also, I think this is something that's kind of like weird and different. And I like weird and different. I'm also, I don't know about you all, but like, I'm kind of in the mood to dabble in other cruise lines, see what's out there. I mean, I love Disney. Of course I love Disney, but like, I watched a 45-minute video on the Icon of the Seas, the new Royal Caribbean ship that's going to be like the largest in the world, which, by the way, is like Royal Caribbean's only byline always, is just, look, the new largest ship in the world. So I do feel like this is kind of fun to hear about a brand new cruise product, and one that unfortunately launched at the start of the pandemic. So
I know, they just kept having to push it.
It's been so rough. But we were texting about things on this cruise, and you were asking me about tattoo care, which made me want to know, did someone get a tattoo with you?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't me. I love that people can find things to represent whatever they're feeling or their life. But I did not get a tattoo.
But someone in your group did. Your neighbor?
My neighbor got a tattoo. She got hearts on her wrist. She said it hurt a lot. It felt like a clean environment. They bring on these tattoo artists for whatever the length of the legal contract that they're allowed to bring them in, and they have to like send them home for like a day or something. I'm not sure, but the experience actually seemed legit. You go the first day, it opens at like 7. At like a half an hour too, there were people waiting in line. So at least a half an hour. I don't know. I left our dinner for some reason. Then we showed up after dinner, maybe 7:30. We were able to get her appointment on the sea day because that's when she wanted it, because you can't immerse it in water. You shouldn't be in the sun. So we wanted the tattoo to be on that day. And it took, the actual inking, it was smallish, but took like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. in and out.
That
Sorry.
is so weird. To be able to get a tattoo on a cruise,
Right?
is a wild thing.
And people do. They like get booked up.
So another thing that Virgin is trying to do differently is kind of their food situation. I believe they don't have like a main food hall, but they also don't have some sort of rotational schedule like Disney does. And on top of that, they also do their kind of cabanas equivalent a little bit differently, which I think is what the Wish was trying to do. And then they just backtracked that real hard. So what was that like? And also, how was finding food with celiac as well?
Yeah, so both my neighbor and I are celiac, so we had to eat gluten-free. I was very concerned about that just because I hadn't heard a lot of information about it. The first thing is that you have to make dining reservations. So let me back up a second. They have the galley. The galley is their cabanas, Marceline Market situation, except that most of the food in the galley is made to order or served to order. Like some of it is just sitting there. And it's brought to you by a waiter. There are a couple of little dishes in a couple of different areas that you can just walk up and grab a container and go. But most of it is brought to you by a server, and it's very quick. Like we went there for tacos, which is one of the favorite things I've ever eaten on a cruise ship. We got those tacos in like 2 minutes. They were amazing. And that was the first day. That's where we had our first lunch. While we were at our first lunch, we were trying to make our dining reservations for the rest of the cruise because you can make them in advance, but we only booked me 9 days before the cruise. So all of our times were like 9:30 at night, which everybody who knows me knows I'm not eating dinner at 9:30 at night. I don't even know if you guys want to eat dinner at 9:30 at night. We had to change all of our dining reservations, which like couldn't be done until at that point until we were on board. So guess where I had to go to change our dining reservations? Back to the screaming entrance of all the crazy club music with the guy on the megaphone yelling at people boarding the ship. Right next to that is where they have you meet for dining. And the first 2 hours of this cruise, the tech worked much like Disney Cruise Lines on its worst day. Actually, it worked less than Disney Cruise Lines on its worst day. It just wouldn't work. We had to keep logging in, and you had to like re-enter your birthday, which it had to find and scroll. So, going back to 44 years in the scrolling thing, oh my God. And it wouldn't keep it and it wouldn't log me in. And you had to be logged in to make. I felt exactly how I sound now. Crazed and stressed and like I wanted off that ship. It was too much. But we finally got all of our reservations at like 6:00, which is exactly when we wanted to eat. And it was glorious.
So how does it work? Is all the food included? Do they have specialty restaurants that you pay extra for? And how do beverages work?
The food is included. I could have purchased Wagyu beef and potentially maybe lobster. There was definitely some seafood included at the one restaurant, but then there was something I think you could purchase extra. I don't eat seafood, so it wasn't, I kind of overlooked that, but I could have purchased Wagyu beef. But the food is all included. You just have to be able to get a reservation. I would say we were full, but they are smaller plates of food. So you order maybe more of them. We split a lot because we just wanted to try so much. So this was my 46th cruise, and I think it was potentially the best food I've had on a cruise ship. It was equal potentially to maybe some of my celebrity cruises. Maybe on par, but maybe slightly better. I mean, good food. And, again, the names are punny. Like the Italian restaurant was called Extra Virgin. And the waiter from the Italian restaurant was the first waiter we had, came from Disney Cruise Line. And he told us a ton, and we kept seeing him. He was the cutest man. He told us that he actually misses the kids and Disney and misses a lot, but he does like how casual Virgin is. But also he buttons his shirt up all the way because he likes to feel a little more formal. Oh my God, love this guy. And he was like in his 40s, so he wasn't old. He just liked some of the Disney, ways. But he went to Virgin because when cruise ships were starting to hire people, Disney didn't come back and didn't open up hiring. And he was like, I needed a job. So I wanted to go back to work. So he jumped ship, and as it were. And so did a lot of others. There were a ton from Disney Cruise Line a ton. He told us a story that he had his tattoos wrapped in a napkin the first like couple of days of coming to work or something, and that the manager actually just ripped off the napkin, and he's like, you don't need that here, show your tattoos with, you know, pride or whatever. Like, they wear blue jeans, it's just a lot more casual. I think there might be one real specialty restaurant or like chef's table situation, but I don't think it was going on our cruise. And I think it's something that they're trying, but their idea is that all of the restaurants are premium experience and that they're included. And it really, our food was good. The Korean restaurant, like Len Testa, he was on our show last year, earlier in the year, something like that. He talked about the Korean restaurant. Oh my God, it was amazing.
I don't know about you guys, but I like the idea of having smaller portions, to be completely honest. And I don't think that that's an age thing for me or whatever, but I would rather have a bunch of smaller portions where you get different flavors and tastes around the board rather than like one gigantic, huge steak or something like that. Any thoughts, like Chris?
Same. I think that Disney has such few dining options compared to other cruise lines that the concept that you're talking about of like tapas style restaurants and little like bites and fun sort of bar food environments, that is something that's appealing to me. Even when I eat with friends here around LA, I feel like that's the direction a lot of restaurants are going, because then you get to try like a little bit of everything as opposed to just like, you know, a giant plate of pasta or something like that.
Related to the pasta and the gluten-free angle, they could do gluten-free pasta, but there were a lot of dishes they couldn't make gluten-free, or they just said they, you know, weren't able to. So I would say it works a little bit better with Disney because you can pre-order and get your food in advance. However, let me just stick with allergies for one more second. I did talk to a manager because we do have a listener and a client that has multiple food allergies and is booked on Virgin, and I needed to know how it would go. And they did say that absolutely, if you have multiple allergies and or you know you want something specific, you can pre-order that food in advance. You can also talk to the managers at each of the restaurants to make sure. But most of the dining staff, I'd say we had one waitress that didn't understand, but most of the dining staff really understood allergies. They ask you right when you sit down, they take it very seriously. I would say there was one issue with one meal, but other than that, we had a great experience and they really understood it. So you can meet with this manager at the beginning of the cruise. You let them know in advance, so they'll also bring on the food that they might need, but you can meet with them and they will work out your food kind of like, you know, on a land vacation, beaches and sandals. They have a culinary manager that will work with you specifically on all those food allergies. They're doing that type of situation here where we can say, okay, at this restaurant, we'll make you this, this, and this. We'll set it up in advance and have it all, have it prepared for you.
Like, you had a thought?
Did you get to eat at the like experimental restaurant?
We did not choose to eat at Test Kitchen. That one we were concerned about with like the choices, the things that were marked gluten-free. Then we would say, so there were limited things and they were like blue cheese heavy still. So neither of us like blue cheese. Blue cheese actually has a large cross-contact issue potentially with those that need to be gluten-free. It just wasn't, we weren't interested. But with a lot of the other food, we could say, okay, this is steak and it's not marked gluten-free. Or these are potatoes. They're not marked gluten-free, but can they be gluten-free? And they're like, yeah, we can make that for you gluten-free.
Did you get like a sense of how many different restaurants they have?
We went to all but one. So Test Kitchen was the only one. We were only on a 5-night cruise or 4-night cruise. So there were 5 restaurants and there was brunch. So there were 2, you had to make reservations. There's no additional charge. There are 2 brunch places as well. Oh no, there's 6 restaurants because there's one we didn't go to for dinner. We only went to that for brunch. And then we didn't go to Test Kitchen either.
And then how did the beverage package? Did you have a beverage package? Like, did you pay for the alcohol? How did that work on board?
They don't do that, which I don't like. But you can, like, they're doing different promotions where if you buy $300 worth of your beverages in advance, they'll give you an extra 50 or 100 depending on the cruise in the month of November. So depending on when this goes out and however many days are left, you could book a cruise now for November and they're actually giving you $330 or $350 each person for beverages. That can go pretty far. Their prices are very reasonable. Like I want to say beer was like $6. I think these prices are online. You can find them. Liquor was maybe more expensive, like between 9 and 11 and 14, depending on what was in the drink. But the price that's on the menu is the price you're paying. Their gratuities are worked into there. The same with the cruise. Like we didn't have an opportunity to leave gratuities. We didn't really have a lot of opportunities to give comments to people, but the gratuities are just built into your cruise price.
So our airline bought Virgin America. In doing so, I read a couple of autobiographies of Richard Branson. He's a very interesting, colorful individual, and his personality kind of gets baked into all of the products and the things that he starts. I'm not sure exactly where Virgin Cruise Line is, whether it's just using his name now, or if he has any financial, other than getting paid royalties for using his name, or using the Virgin name, I should say. But the one thing that I really took away from it is the people that tend to work underneath the Virgin brand can be very loyal to that brand. And I guess my question is, my only other experience is Norwegian Cruise Line. There's some amazing individuals, I think, on all the different cruise lines. What was the crew like on this sailing?
They were incredible. They were some of the best crew of any cruise line and cruise experience that I have had. So really dedicated to anything you need and, just service. And actually, because so many of them worked for Disney and they said we could switch, right? Once our contract is up. But they did say that Virgin takes very good care of them. What was also interesting is I found, do you know with Disney, like the entertainment staff are allowed, or entertainment crew, or maybe they're cast members, but they're allowed to be where the people are. But on Virgin, I felt like so many more of the crew were allowed to be among the guests. They had to wear their name badge, but they were buying coffee at the coffee stand. And you guys, you're paid for coffee, and it's literally $4. And that includes the tip. So even if I had to pay out of pocket, which I didn't because I got it included, I would have paid $4 for those drinks. I mean, they were very good and they were $4.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, the people that I've been able to work with that were with Virgin America are very they loved working for Virgin America. And so that's good to hear that kind of continues on with the cruise line as well, I guess, with that branding. So you guys went to Key West. Cruise ships are going back there. We're not going to touch on that, but let's talk about Bimini, which is their kind of private island. What was that experience like?
It's hard to fully judge them or give them a fair shake because the weather was not great. It was very windy. It was a little bit rainy. It was cloudy. Like the waves, you could not. Let's go back. Bimini is an island, and there is a beach club that Virgin has purchased or leased or whatever for their visitors. It's right next to the Hilton. And then I think there's some other country clubby something homeowners association in between. But there's a tram that you take between the Hilton resort and the Virgin. Everybody even shares that tram, it stops at both locations. So you take this tram, it's maybe 8 minutes or something, 6 minutes to take the tram. Then there's 2 pools, there's a beach, there's lots of beach chairs, there's umbrellas. None of our umbrellas could be used. The way the beach club works is it's not protected in any way. You know how Disney, on Serenity Bay, it's not protected, but on the family beach, it is by having a rock wall or whatever sitting there. None of that exists. And so we could not go in the water. It was not safe that day. Not a person was in the water. The waves were 8 feet high or something. It was kind of shocking that they were able to actually get into port and stayed into port. My friend actually thought we were still moving way into the morning because the ship was shaking so much because of the wind while we were docked. It was just a really bad weather day. So we went, I was really tired because I think we stayed up too late and whatever, maybe enjoyed a few beverages too many the night before or something. So I was going to take a nap and I laid in this beach chair and the sand was literally flying up from the ground and hitting us in the face because it was so windy. So then we're just forget it. Let's go eat and then just go back. The food was not your typical barbecue. So some people are really going to like it and some people aren't going to want to eat there. So they had 2 different curry choices. Like one was pumpkin and one was chicken. And like colorful dishes the rest of the way. It was like the most not barbecue at all. Like nothing was traditional about the food that they served. So some people would really like that and some people won't. That was maybe more of a challenge. We eventually sorted it out to eat allergy free there. So we could sort it out. That wasn't the easiest part. And so if you like unique food, there's a whole menu thing that tells you what you have a choice of. So you can decide to eat there or go back to the ship.
So not the best day for you guys there. I think if I remember right, like Len, they had kind of like some kind of music party kind of going around the pool or something like that. Yeah. Did they have other activities? Like, did you even notice that they could book or anything like that? You know, like Disney has parasailing and that type of stuff. If you wanted to do something.
Yeah, there were, they call it shore escapes or shore. They have another punny word for that. They have activities that you could book. They have cabanas you could book as well. So in those like covered beach, like in Alani, you know, on the beach with the cover that covers half of your beach chair. So they had those. They had massages on the beach. They had volleyball nets. They had cornhole. They had like stuff like that you could do, the 2 pools, but there wasn't a ton happening because the water, everybody, like there was like a couple people in the water and it was cold. You could tell they thought it was cold. Everybody thought it was cold.
Let's get back to the ship then. Just a couple other things. Do they have a casino?
They do. I didn't recall. I meant to look, but there was no sign. So I meant to look to see what the minimum was at the card tables. It's a small casino. Like I always thought Celebrities Casino was kind of small, and it's small. And there's no smoking really indoors, but there must be some smoking near that casino. It's not in it, but there's like a little tiny portion because that's where you would walk to get to the Red Room, which is where the shows happened. There was a little tiny area where you could kind of smell some smoke. But they even announced it at the beginning, like if you want to smoke, you can only do so at this place and this place. So they have like, you know, it's maybe the one rule they have is where you could smoke on the ship.
And then I'm sure they have a spa, anything like the rainforest room or anything like that you can do for the day.
Oh,
would you know?
Think so, but now I might be confusing them with Celebrity. I feel like there was, but I'm not. No, there is because I watched a YouTube video about it. Yes, there is the same type of spa room.
And then I remember Len talking about like yoga on the deck or something like that, the like kind of the workout theme of the day. They kind of pushed that a little bit, or I don't know if push is not the right word, but that was available too, as far as gym and things like that.
A lot of that. And they have like cycle bar type classes. They have boxing. So they have stuff on like 2 different, there's like a gym on the 5th floor or something like that, 5th or 6th floor. And then again, up at the top on the pool deck.
So like, is she selling this for you and Katie?
I'm definitely intrigued, which is part of the reason why I wanted to be part of this show. It's just so fascinating hearing about all the different things they have going on in comparison to Disney or even other cruise lines like Royal and Norwegian. So I think it's definitely something that might be worth a try in the future.
They have dodgeball. Like for some reason, I feel like you might enjoy something like that on the deck. I don't know, sports ball, but like that seems like a different like, you know, experience. They have aperitivo where you could go to, you know, the Italian happy hour. You can go to the Italian restaurant an hour before it opens, and we wanted to go to that, and I'm not sure why we missed it. But they just have so many different unique experiences that really you can make this cruise whatever you wanted it to be.
So we talked about kind of your preconceptions of the cruise and how that's changed kind of after cruising. And I think overall, just like many people, we went in kind of questioning what it was going to be like and came out with a positive experience. So 2 follow-up questions to that is, 1, is this something that you would cruise again and potentially bring your husband along with you? And then how would you compare this experience to both Disney, which I think is going to be a very different experience, but also you really like Celebrity Cruises, and we've mentioned that a few times. How does that also compare? Because I feel like they might be a more comparable comparison.
Yeah. In terms of, okay, so would I cruise again? Yes, I would. Would I cruise again with my husband and or other friends and, you know, groups? Yes, I would. And it's because for me, like Circus Disco is not for me for the most part, like loud, crowded, not for me, but there's so much that was what was for me. And even when I cruise Disney, maybe my trip reports are a little bit boring in that respect because I don't like go and do all the things. Like I do a couple of things and they're memorable for me. And I also relax because it's like my downtime. And I got to do that still here. And I know my husband would appreciate that aspect of it. If people like movies, the in-room entertainment, the movies the list is huge and those are all included. There's a lot for everybody. How it compares to the others? Well, for one, they're like Disney has their Disney, movie list on the TV, for example, but that's kind of what you get, right? Celebrity has like 6 movies that you can watch. Like Virgin had 1 million. The whole reservation system, so stressful and really put a damper on the whole dining situation. And that you never got to have any of your waiters twice. I didn't love because, you didn't get that getting to know them situation. But like the food was so good that it didn't matter to me. I would tell people that as long as you are okay with colorful, then maybe a little provocative in your cruise, then it would be a cruise line. I would say you can still try. You can really make it what you want. And some of these activities are so interesting that they offered. I don't know why I didn't notice them a little bit better in the beginning. But let me say one more thing that we didn't talk about. The best invention of any cruise line to ever exist. Do you know what I'm talking about, Lake?
I think we're talking about Shake for Champagne.
Shake for Champagne. So the one thing is with the frequent cruiser thing, which frankly, book your cruise, go in the next 2 months so that you can also have Shake for Champagne. We got included Shake for Champagne and we literally shaked our phone, whatever. And champagne showed up both days within 10 minutes of shaking in a bottle, and they open it and they do, and there's no signing, there's no tipping, there's like, and they literally find you wherever you've shaken your phone to bring you champagne. One of the shows I watched said it took like a while for their champagne to arrive, but on our cruises in like the middle of the day or toward, before dinner, it arrived so quickly. Such good champagne too. Every cruise line needs Shake for Champagne. If you had to pay for it, I think it was like $105. So that would be, less exciting, but still fine, but the best.
Overall, Celebrity, Virgin, where's your heart?
I mean, it's still Celebrity.
Okay.
Because no matter what, I got to walk through that entrance when you're boarding the ship of Virgin with that. And so, thank God I don't have to do that all the time. Right. That lake, I'm telling you, like I sent Steve a video. I think I'm going to post it in our Patreon group. So if you got to join, you can see it. He's like, I don't hear you talking. No, you don't. You only hear the crazy circus disco, which is not really what they called it, but in the atrium of loudness that I had to sit through to get my dining slots.
If you watch it, just watch your eyes, because I think that just speaks a million. It's like, what have I got myself into?
Like what? But it was so good. The crew, man, between the crew and the food. If you don't like flavorful food, I also am not sure Virgin would be for you. Because every day after we eat dinner, and they had good desserts too. And it was just like, that feeling of yummy flavors in your mouth. That's what you get. I'm not sure how that sounds, but food was very good.
Okay. So before we wrap it up, I'm going to lean on your travel agent expertise. What type of tips are you going to give somebody that's going to travel the first time? We've given you a lot of different things to think about, I guess, through this podcast, but any specific tips at all for somebody sailing for the first time on Virgin besides, make sure you use your status. That's a great one there.
Yeah. Use your status. And I will say that listener Andy is the one who sent me that message. She DM'd me on Instagram and said, look, you need to look into this. And it was awesome. And at first, because we were like on some travel agent rate, they weren't going to give it to us, but they did give it to us. So I don't know. Even if you think your rate doesn't apply or it's into next year, I would fill out that form and see what happens. We found out we had it because there was a list in our cabin. And I actually think I sent it to you and maybe Dave. And I'm like, do we get these perks? Because it was like our free coffee every day and all this stuff that we really liked having. So get the status, give it a try. Don't be alarmed by circus disco, because you can avoid circus disco except when you're boarding the ship if you really want to. and you can really make it the experience. And if you want circus disco, then go and be your best circus disco self, because Virgin is accepting of whatever, however you are and however you come. And that's, I think, the thing that makes Virgin so amazing. You can be librarian or circus disco. And yes, I've just, made a preconceived notion on librarians. You know what I mean? You could be me, okay, and a little bit lame, or you could be circus disco and you can still have a great time.
I love that. Lake, final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I think we pretty much answered all my questions, and I'm excited to kind of hear more about it.
You're going to have to try it.
Maybe.
Do they do Florida rates or anything like that? Florida residency rates, or is that just a Disney thing?
Probably. I think all the cruise lines do, and they need people. Go Lake in November if you can. You have to work, you can't. But I mean, like you get free drinks, and the prices are like really good right now, I think.
Well, Lake's got Wine and Dine coming up too, so he's got a stage shape for that, and then Marathon Weekend quickly after that, in between the holidays. So
listen, you can run on the ship, because on this ship there's a running track
that doesn't require 3 flights of stairs.
Does not require the steepest stairs in the history of all stairs, a la Disney Wish.
Hey, one last question. So I haven't really looked at the layout of the ship or not. And one of the things that I think that the new Norwegian ships did really well is when you're in the warmer waters, they kind of incorporate an indoor outdoor feel for like their main deck, where they'll have bars and restaurants and where they have indoor and outdoor spacing. Is the Scarlet Lady like that at all, where you've got that kind of that indoor outdoor feel as well?
Yes. And with that comes a lot of birds. There were birds all over the ship because they would fly through, and I had a bird in my cabin, and I eventually had to get somebody to come and help. Like I had to request them in the app, and we just kept saying, we need towels, we need water. Cause I was like, I need these people to come and get this bird out of here. And literally somebody came and scooped up the bird and took it away because it kept going under my bed and I couldn't get it out. But anyway, because of the indoor outdoor, lots of birds, but yes, there was a lot of outdoor bars, like down on maybe deck 6 area, deck 6 and 7, and then up at the top as well.
I guess that's the final thought there. Well, before we get out of here, Lake, you and Katie run an amazing channel over at MouseGen. You've got some great videos of all your Disney Cruise Line sailings, also lots of Run Disney content as well. You've got Wine and Dine Weekend coming up. I apologize, I did not get the latest Run Disney rundown that we did up on our feed. We'll definitely be having that on soon. For people that want to follow you guys, thanks for coming on and helping us out with the show. But I want to give you a chance to let everybody know where they can find you and Katie and all the content that you guys create.
Yeah, of course. Happy to just be able to be part of this show. But you can always find us over at YouTube at MouseGen and Instagram, mouse.gen. Those are our main 2 places you can find us. We'll be at all the Run Disney weekends. We'll be at the Castaway Challenge with a couple other people here. And then we'll actually be on a Norwegian cruise. I think we're sailing the same itinerary, like within 2 weeks of each other, right?
Yes, we are. Yeah, I'm excited about that one as well. I can't wait to get back up to Alaska. So
yeah, I'm excited. It'll be our first time.
Well, anyways, as we get out of here, Christy, I'll give you the final thoughts here on Virgin. I think you kind of said it, but one more time.
I really think Virgin is a cruise line for everybody, over the age of 18. It can be for everybody, and that is just fantastic. And really think about giving it a try. It exceeded my expectations. It was a great experience.
Well, thank you so much for this trip report. Thanks for taking one for the team and sailing on Virgin Voyages. Really do appreciate that. I loved getting to hear something different as well. And thank you so much, Lake, for coming on and helping us out with the show. And we look forward to seeing you here soon down in Walt Disney World.
And if you want the Navigator that's not called the Navigator, email me at Christy@packyourpixiedust.com and I'll send it to you. And if I forget, just email me a second time.
And I guess we should say that too. Christy is a travel agent. If you don't have a travel agent you're working with right now, she's got just amazing experiences across all the different cruise lines. And now she's got Virgin Voyages underneath her belt as well. How can people use your services if they want to, Christy?
You can find me at packyourpixiedust.com. You can email me at Christy@packyourpixiedust. I'm on social media under the same handle. And remember, there's no additional charge to book a package with me. So if you are booking one of these cruise lines, they pay us commission once you've sailed, so you don't have to. And I can help you out and answer all your questions.
I love it. All right. Well, as we get out of here today, once again, thanks for coming on and taking a listen, everybody. And we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. What a fun show. Something completely different with Christy sailing on Virgin Voyages, the Scarlet Lady. And we've got another series which we'll have out in the next month or two, talking about Norwegian Cruise Line from 2 different sailings there, one this past summer, and then one just recently in the fall out of New York. We look forward to bringing you some different content so that you can kind of gauge, it doesn't always work for us to sail with Disney, and sometimes it helps to branch out and try different products, and we hope you enjoy this look at some different options out there for you and your family as well. As always, we'd like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. They help bring this show to you each week ad-free. If you'd like to find out how you can support our show, you can go over to patreon.com/DCL podcast and find out all the information there. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to each and every one of you who've taken time to leave us a review, whether it's on iTunes or wherever it's not called iTunes anymore, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps others find this show. We want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to do that. That helps us grow the show and helps others find it as well. Well, we're past the Halloween season. We are on to very maritime sailings with Disney Cruise Line and the holidays in the parks. Our next show will kind of give you a brief overview of those very maritime cruises. We'll have it to you later this week. We hope you enjoyed that one, so look for that one coming soon. Well, as we finish up, if you were headed out on a Disney cruise sailing, if you're headed out on Adventures by Disney, or just headed to the parks for the holiday season, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL Podcast, we want to wish you to be well, enjoy time with family and friends, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.